We're back in Ruka for the second race of the day, the men's 10-kilometre cross-country in the freestyle, the skating technique. That's due to get underway in a few minutes' time. Bad news, I'm afraid, if you're a Nordic Combined fan, because the Nordic Combines had to be cancelled due to the wind conditions this morning. It hasn't actually been that strong, but it's around force 3, and those of you who know your Beaufort scale will know that wind goes at between 3.5 and 4 metres per second, and that's just about on the margins. I think we might be all right for the specialist ski jumpers this evening. Let's hope so, because David Goldstrom will be waiting to cover that event for you. Cross-country skiers, no problem whatsoever. It's just about perfect, actually, Mike.
It has dropped about a degree since the women's race earlier this morning. Well, here we are, Ruka, all the way up the north end of Finland, close to the Arctic Circle, and very dark, and daylight almost fading now at local time. What are we, coming up to 1 o'clock?
Altitude at 492 metres, that's not really going to be an issue. Lots of the teams have been altitude training in the latter part of the summer. Lenkov, the previous winner of this 10-kilometre event last year, we had a Ruka double rather than a Ruka triple, and it was was it 10 or a 15k classic, won by Niskanen of Finland. So that was a turn up for the books, for the locals to see a home victory.
Well, that was interesting, and of course Juha Järvi was on the podium that day as well. 2 Finns on the podium. Could it happen today? It's not impossible. Unlikely.
With Sundby in second place, and Sundby, incidentally, Mike's tip for this race today. Well, let's have a look at the race yesterday. One of the biggest surprises was Paul Goldberg, the fastest of the qualifiers. Absolutely streets ahead of everyone else, but took a fall out on his own. Still can't quite work out what happened there, but that was Goldberg's chance of a win gone, and he then opened it up to the rest of the Norwegians. We saw some good performances by Finn Hagen, in fact Krok going out in the early stages, and he was expected to do better. Andrew Newell of USA was looking good, but the out-and-out star was Fosley of Norway, who dominated the final, really led from start to finish, never gave anyone else a look in, and not for the first time here in Ruka, a Norwegian 1, 2, 3. Outstanding sprinting from them yet again, and the classic sprint really up their street. Fosley, Brownsdahl, Nortug, the 1, 2, 3. Great run from Andrew Newell of USA, finishing 4th. Theodor Pedersen of Sweden in 5th, ahead of Emil Jonsson, who took it fairly easily on that final. I think he was a spent force after his showboating in the first round.
Jonsson's strange, isn't it? He goes out after the first round, he's good, second round, into the semi-final, he's good, and then, well, 22 seconds behind in the final. It worked for him at the Olympics, didn't it? He backed off early, and then eventually they all fell, and he came 3rd.
Well, one of the big stories here today is, of course, the presence of Martin Fourcade, of biathlon greatness, who has decided to try his hand at some cross-country skiing. We've seen Bjorndalen do it in the past. We've seen Svindal have a crack at it, and they've generally done very well indeed. But how will Martin Fourcade fare today? Well, there you see his record. He's got 39 World Cup victories. None of them have come from cross-country. And today, perhaps his chance to prove himself. I think he'll find it quite tough. And certainly, Mike, from what I've seen over the last 2 weeks, his form isn't top.
Sadly, it isn't. I would love to see him match up against the best cross-country skiers in the world when he's on his best form. He says it's all gone well, but he's a little suppressed from training into the season. We'll have to wait and see.
Well, I really admire him for having a crack at cross-country. Lots of people are critical, saying he should be focusing on getting 6 World Cup victories to match Bjorndalen and such and so forth, but he needs something else to keep him motivated.
Parce que c'est vrai que si j'ai commencé le biathlon, moi c'était pas pour le côté compétition, c'était avant tout pour le côté pratique, côté m'épanouir.
Skiing is an amazing sport, and he finds it as a way to feed his passion for nature, and he just likes that connection you have when you're out on the cross-country skis, and that's why he started with cross-country skiing, and then he turned to biathlon when he wanted an adrenaline boost. He liked the addition of the shooting, found it a little bit of a brain teaser. I'm sure you can appreciate that, Mike. But it was the combination of physical and mental that appealed to him with the biathlon.
mettre en place ce que je voulais pour.
This year he can work on his goals. Last year he had mononucleosis, which certainly put him out of sorts in the early part of the season, but he came back well to win it in the overall. He's focused on his strength. He's focused a lot on his upper body strength this year. And that he hopes will bode well when it comes to sprint finishes. That could be a major factor. And so he spent a bit more time in the gym this summer than normal, and actually says he feels stronger than he has in the past. If that is true, he's certainly going to be difficult to contend with on the biathlon. But cross-country is a very, very different beast indeed.
It is. You get the so-called rests in biathlon for, 30 seconds when you're shooting. You recover during that period. This is out and out, start line, finish line, full-speed racing. There he is. Interesting in the background in his interview there, Patrick, he was running in the tracks on the hill at Holmenkollen where the World Championships biathlons go in March. Of course, he moved up there in August with his partner.
Yeah, and he was thinking he should have gone to Russia where they had snow a good 6 weeks earlier than anywhere else. But that's not the case. We'll take a quick break. We'll be back with the start of the men's 10-kilometre freestyle. So the grey skies continue here in Ruka, unfortunately. A little bit of wind that's caused an upset with the Nordic Combined programme.
Shouldn't he be sleeping?
Well, that's an indication of global warming, if anything is, in these parts. And nice to see a few fans turning out. So we're expecting even more this evening for the ski jumping, although they may be well aware that cancellation is probable rather than possible. And then, of course, tomorrow, the climax of the Ruka Triple. I think we'll see good fans out for tomorrow's race. A couple of good finish results. Palmer Koski didn't do too badly in the women's 5-kilometre.
She was brilliant. I think in the men's race, the Finnish team, Strandval, yesterday, of course, more a sprinter, but they have a strong team with the World Championships coming to Finland, the next cross-country World Champs, which is not this season, but next season.
Well, there you see the air temperature 3.2, getting back to what it was earlier on this morning. The course, 10,000 metres, as I'm sure you're aware. Now, most runners would be hoping to do that. Anyone who could run this particular track in 30 minutes would be doing well. We're expecting a winning time of around, 22, 23 minutes, maybe even quicker.
Possibly quicker, 22, just under maybe. Though the track's not the fastest, not overly iced up today.
Well, there's the start list, and nice to see Andy Musgrave up there, starting number 3 after his disappointing run yesterday. No doubt he's capable of making the qualification in a sprint race, but more likely to do that when it's a freestyle sprint. Yesterday was a classic sprint, but Muzzy starting number 3. We'll keep our eye out for him. Legkov, former winner, of course, starting in the top 15. Vilizhanin of Russia just behind Belov. Those two could work together and do some damage on this course. There's Fosley, the winner of the sprint. He'll be in yellow, the World Cup leader, number 38. Theodor Pedersen, 40. Finnhagen Krok will want to make up for the fact that he didn't make it through to the final yesterday. And further down, Devon Kershaw of Canada. He's done well over the last couple of years. Sundby, many people's hot favourite, starting 54.
The seeded group, Patrick, there they all are, from position 30, the 15th, the 15 fastest of last season. From 15th to 60 the start, and interspersed between them it's the group 3 athletes every 30 seconds, obviously, so splitting the big names, the big seeds, by 1 minute.
And then the slower skiers at the back, but Martin Fourcade will keep our interest alive. He starts number 94, so he's got at least 50 minutes before he starts his run today. In terms of start position, Mike, with these conditions, it's gone up to +3. And getting warmer, bizarrely, at this time of night when it should be getting colder. that means that the uphill sections are going to cut up. Surely Muzzy has the perfect start at number 3.
When I saw the start sheet last night, I thought that is the ideal place to go. The women have been around this track, so it is pressed down. It's in beautiful condition, and maybe it's not going to be much today, I don't think, Patrick, but maybe it will slow down a little as the race goes on. And here's just thinking with the biathlete Martin Fourcade, 4 consecutive seasons he's been the best biathlete. There's Muzzy there. Just
number 3, Andrew Musgrave, of course, got a stage win on the Tour de Ski last year. Can he repeat it this season?
And disappointed yesterday was Muzzy, but just a bad day. He came, 92nd. It's not a big deal. He wasn't functioning great yesterday. I think he'll function very, very well today.
He did beat Martin Fourcade, though, so he'd love to do the same again today. That might be quite tricky. We'll see how he gets on. So a very warm welcome to the start of the Cross-Country World Cup season. Yesterday, the first races in the sprint. Today, the first of the distance races. 5 kilometres for the women earlier on. And Norway and Sweden dominating as they did in the sprint. And then, of course, the men's 10-kilometre freestyle about to get underway. Bernhard Tritcher of Austria will be the first man across the line. He'll set the pace, certainly in the early stages. We'll get splits, Mike. We should certainly get them at 3.1 where they saw the women's. We'll get 1.2, 3.1. We'll have one at 5 kilometres, and that's of course when they come through the stadium, and we'll have one at 6.2 as well.
Well, Tritcher, as he takes the line, of course, the champion, the national champion of Austria from 21st of March last year, but over 30 kilometres in the freestyle.
Little blast out of the start line, and already you can see how soft that snow on the surface is, and that could well prove a factor. The sharp corners, the steep uphills, that is where the course is likely to get cut up, and it may not, each one may not lose you much, but cumulatively it's going to be difficult. The Swedes have taken Movember pretty seriously this year. Theodor Pedersen, I do hope that comes off at the start of December. We will see. Maybe he'll enjoy that. This is Martin Johansson, of course, another man who races for IFK Mora, 31 now. And a good race today might seal his place on the team for the rest of the season. Andrew Musgrave is next. He'll have Ivan Babikov starting just behind him. There he is, a man who was born in Poole, brought up in Alaska, moved to Huntley just west of Aberdeen, and now lives in Trondheim. A combination of locations that has produced Britain's best ever cross-country skier.
Oh, he's the real deal, and very, very intelligent, as well as a very, very top-class athlete. Learned Norwegian in just about 6 months, which, well, not an easy language to master.
Even Babikov, he'll be glad to be chasing Musgrave. That's not a bad marker to have. We've seen them race together before. Anders Svanebo moving into the start area as Babikov heads off, racing for Canada now, of course, Babikov. And he's a hard grafter, isn't he? Puts in long, long hours training.
When he first moved to Canada, they couldn't believe that the human body could train so much. So he brought this hard work ethic to the Canadians, and I think that helped take them up to the high place they are today.
Svanebo, it's good over 50k. How's he going to cope over 10?
Well, the recent FIS race, so early season race up in Bruksvallana, Svanebo came 4th, good racing, over 15 kilometres freestyle.
Hans Christer Holland, 26-year-old, just signing his name on the board as last year's winner of the only distance race here in Ruka, takes his place on the start line. Leivo Niskanen, who is another man who lives and trains in Vuokatti. Brilliant area to be, as we mentioned earlier today, one of the venues that has its own snow tunnel, and many of the international teams heading up there. Great tracks around Vuokatti as well.
Oh, brilliant biathlon range there as well, 30 lanes wide, so it caters for all winter sports.
Jonas Baumann of Switzerland. The two Colognas are racing. Dario goes off number 30.
Jonas was part of the Swiss team, I should say, of course, at the World Champs that finished 5th in the relay. So, as a quartet, now the Swiss team are growing in stature. Legkov didn't have a great year last year, Patrick. I think he's going to come back this year, we'll see today, in much better shape.
Sergei Ustiakov, 5-time junior world champion. Doesn't mean you're going to be a senior, but he certainly has the potential to win many World Cups this year.
I know I felt when he was the junior world champion, you mentioned 5 times, they brought him into World Cups, they asked him to race every race, of course he leapt at it, and I think that suppressed him. I think he hasn't quite reached his potential in the senior level yet.
Yes, we watch Martin Jaks of the Czech Republic. He's been on good form, won a trial race in Boden. The Russians, the French, the Germans, a few of the Austrians, the Swiss were there. So expect to see something good from Martin Jaks today. Yeah, you're mentioning Ustiakov racing a lot. Yesterday we were also talking about Heidi Weng. She did 42, by my calculation, 42 races in a calendar year.
Oh, that is tough. There's, you know, day on day often, and there's no time for recovery, and you can lose your edge for racing if you over race.
Turyshev.
I think this man's got a lot of potential this season for Russia.
And his teammate Volzentsev just lining up. So that's 3 Russians out on the tracks already. Besmertnik getting prepared. Yevgeny Belos starting 24. We got Vilizhanin starting 25. All the Russians have drawn early start numbers, largely because they didn't get into the final stages of the sprint yesterday. There's Volzentsev. He was well beaten in Yalivari in a 15k free there. Won by Ustiakov, actually, who's already out on the tracks. Form can change, but I guess actually at the beginning of the season is the time you can see fairly dramatic changes in form. Juha
Järvi still going and still the key man, like the team captain of Finland. Speaks Swedish, Norwegian, English and German. And he's still in great form, Patrick. He's maybe a little better in classic skiing than he is in freestyle.
3rd on the 15k classic here last year, Juha Järvi. That was a very popular result indeed. As we go back to Alexander Legkov, the Tour de Ski winner from 2013, and his World Cup standing, 2nd in 2014, 2nd in 2015, and actually he was 2nd in the overall standings back in 2007. So Legkov really is a class act. Can he get a win this year? Can he get ahead of the 2 Norwegians?
I think he can. Legkov has got that focus, that mindset. After his Olympic golds, he had a quiet year. He was given a lot of presents after that and had to attend a lot of functions, so he lost an edge a little. He's back again this season.
Robin Duvier, the first of the French. In 40 minutes time, his teammate Martin Fourcade will take his place in his first distance cross-country World Cup. Welcome back to Arouca, just in time for Anders Gluresen going off the start line.
Gluresen, the reigning Norwegian champion over this distance and this technique, but that was January last year.
That was a 15 free, was it?
That was indeed, yep. All the big names were there, and they based that really as selection as well for the World Champs. Well, sure, Rote has to be better in classic than he is in freestyle. He showed that in Beiderstolen, where he won the classic by 45 seconds and yet came for 38th in the 15-kilometer free.
So why do you think there are some skiers who just still have one technique that they're so much better at?
It's interesting, like Niskin and you could say and Juha Järvi are better in classic, as is Sjur Rote, but there aren't many anymore who have that imbalance, and Sundby was the same. He was massively imbalanced, was great in classic, not as good in freestyle, but he put that right in one summer by doing huge amount of gym work to get the muscles working properly, the supporting muscles.
Yeah. Niskanen coming up to the 3.1 kilometre stage. I can tell you that Andrew Musgrave has gone through. When we last had a look, he was 3 seconds down. That now has been pushed to 8 seconds behind at 3.1. And so not the fastest of starts, but that may be good news, Mike. On the positive side, he's had a tendency to start a little bit too fast.
And I think that's one aspect where Muzzy has improved. He's all that youthful desire, determination to destroy the rest of the field in racing terms. He's harnessing that much, much better now. So hopefully taking it within himself on this first lap.
But this is a fairly short race at 10 kilometres, and you can't afford to give away too many seconds because the pace is unrelenting. Lustig off now, up towards the 3.1.
Well, this could be a new lead time. I would say there's a strong chance that he'll get Johansson's time, but not by much.
Still a long way. Still got 50 metres to go. I think Johansson might survive as the race leader. 7:01.9.
He seems to have changed his technique there, Patrick. There's that head flick when he goes left. He's not getting the management of his left leg fully engaged. Oh no, he's losing time on Johansson.
And in fact, only 0.8 of a second ahead of Andy Musgrave. So suffering a little in those early stages. 23, Alex Harvey. Is this going to be his season? Shown so much promise. Actually had a really good World Championships. Silver in the sprint event. He got a bronze in the skiathlon. It would be fantastic to see him get a couple of World Cup wins under his belt. He's totally deserving of that sort of success.
He is indeed, and great news for the Canadians. The World Cups, the final 2 World Cups going over to North America. Canmore and over in Montreal. In fact, over to Canada entirely, Canada.
So we watched Chiryshev. Mike, you remember those pre-race emotions and feelings, the last sort of 10 minutes before you set off?
It's everything you've trained for happening in 10 minutes time, everything that judges you, and it's a nervous feeling, or it can be an incredibly calming feeling. I think for a lot of people that just go into a kind of a very relaxed state before the body gets pushed into this punishing maximum 20 odd minutes of pushing hard.
Yeah, you get to the stage where you know you can't pull out, therefore you might as well relax. 25, Maxim Viligjanin, gold in the skiathlon at the World Championships in Falun, proving that he's just as good at skating as he is at freestyle. There's Dario Cologna. He would love to get back to the top of the World Cup table. Didn't happen for him last year. Missed out. Sundby some 300 points clear. Sundby the champion last year, Cologna second, Petter Northug third, and Finnhagen Krok, who won the sprinting, down in 4th place ahead of Sweden's Kalle Halvarsson. The best of the Russians, Yevgeny Belov in 6th place. Now Legkov, he's by my reckoning, he's outside Johansson's time. Now, Johansson started number 2, incidentally. He's either on tremendous form or he has gone off like a whippet, trying to make an impression. I think the smart money would say Johansson is likely to fade on the second lap.
He showed decent form, Patrick, in, what was it, last weekend's race up in Gällivare, in Bruksvallarna. Not far off the lead time from Niklas Dierhaug, only 18 seconds off, so he is really in good shape, but it feels like he may have gone out so hard. The excitement of starting in 2nd place.
Alex Harvey, 23. Now, is he going to challenge for that lead time? He's got Martin Johansson right on his heels. Johansson, remember, is the leader at 3.1 at the moment, now on his 2nd loop, so he has struck lucky getting Alex Harvey just ahead of him. If he can stick with the Canadian, there is no doubt that Martin Johansson is going to get a good result.
And that's exactly what he'll be doing, just trying to stay in the slipstream of Harvey. Harvey's had a great start.
8 World Cup wins for Polteranen. If it's going to come this weekend, I think it's more likely to be tomorrow. Not the best of starts, losing that left basket in the soft snow on the side of the track.
And you can just see the snow splashing up as Sundby gets his final preparation underway.
Dario Colonia, 3 times Olympic champion. Remember his problems approaching Sochi with those ankle injuries. Incredible that he came away with 2 golds. Both Colonias racing today. Gianluca starting number 79, so he's still got 25 minutes or so before he needs to put the skis on. Dario is away and will be chasing the time of Johansson. Rota coming up to 3.1, and well, it's good, but I still think he's going to be 4, 5, 6 seconds outside that leading pace, maybe a fraction more than that.
He's technically so easy, so fluid in freestyle, but just slightly better on paper in the classic technique. It's not bad though. This stage, 10 seconds is safe after just what, 1/3 of the race, just under 1/3 of the race.
Yeah, I think this is looking good for Andrew Musgrave as well, Mike. Remember, he found himself 8 seconds off the pace of the leader at 3.1 with only 2 people starting in front of him. He must have thought, oh my goodness, I'm having another bad day. But once he learns that the big guns are also 7, 8 seconds behind, I think the British team can relax a little. Roy Young will certainly be watching. Roy's done a wonderful job with obviously Andrew Young and Andrew Musgrave. He's very statistical, he's very analytical, and he's put a lot of science into his approach for coaching.
He absolutely has, and I think his personality is there. He's there for the team. That goes a long way also. Keeps the team morale, the spirit is so high in the team, and that's a big factor as well.
Andrew Newell starting for USA, 4th place yesterday in the sprint. If he could do the same again today, that would be wonderful stuff for him. Put him in a good position in the World Cup standings. There's Fojli, yesterday's winner. Fojli, Bransdal, Northug, Norway, 1, 2, 3. The best of the Finns was Matti Strandvall down in 11th place. So only one Finn getting through to the semi-finals yesterday. Now, just looking at the rankings, Mike, if we go ahead to 6.2.
Well, that's it. So Johansson's still extending his lead out front at 6.2. He's 23 ahead of second place Musgrave, so 23 seconds at 6 kilometers. Niskanen still in there. Ushtigov dropping back 30 seconds behind in 4th place. Still looking good for Muzzy.
Yeah, he's ahead of some big names, but Martin Johansson is having an absolute flyer. He's 31 years old, not a name that many of you will be familiar with. And as I mentioned, he skis for IFK Mora, which is one of the top clubs, isn't it? A lot of people go there. I think Krista Skoga's worked there over a number of years.
Yes, he has. It is a great club. And there's Alex Harvey, and look at the distance. Johansson's trying to stay with Alex Harvey. He's let a gap of some 8 seconds open up now. That was his easier ride to try and stay behind Harvey.
And Harvey
who's a lap
is
behind.
2.5 seconds behind Johansson at that 3.1 kilometre stage. So those two have started pretty much at the same pace. Here we go with Fojli. Another man who did brilliantly at Junior World Championship level, and he proved his worth at senior level yesterday, getting his first ever World Cup win. And he did it in some style. Actually, he made it look easy. He took the bold approach. Get out front, stay out front.
It's a brave approach, isn't it? You've got to have a whole lot of self-belief to when there's 5 of the best behind you, to lead from the front in the final sprint competition on these tracks. Shows his quality. There's Muzzy, bib 3.
Now, Musgrave could do with going ahead of Villig Janin if he can. because Villijanen is going to be certainly more than 5 seconds off the pace, could be closer to 10. Looking very easy though, Villijanen. I wonder whether this is a pacing game he's playing. Muzzy not having a lot of problem here is Ted or Pedersen. How do you take that moustache seriously?
Could it slow him down? No.
Tall man, good sprinter when he first came on the tour. Made a real impression in the sprint scene. And now he's a serious distance athlete as well. Robin Duvier from France, 21 seconds down at 6.2. So if we go to 6.2 kilometres, Mike, can you give us a rundown on the top 5?
It's still Johansson, then Ledkov is only 18 behind, Duvier is 21 behind, Turchev is 21, and then Muzzy in 5th place, 23 seconds behind.
So Andrew Musgrave, top 5 at 6.2 at the moment. What do you think his aim will be for today?
I expected him to get a top 20, a top 15 today. But remember, in the summer he had glandular fever as well. He didn't do his first speed session until well into July, so he's missed a whole lot of that early May, June, April, May, June part of his training. So he lost a lot of base training. Maybe, again, he'll be looking at the Tour de Ski as his key part of the season without there being a World Championships this year. I'd love to see him take another win.
And the key with glandular fever or mononucleosis is to rest, and that's probably the hardest thing for someone of his mentality.
Oh, so hard. And we heard Martin Fourcade saying that his previous year he had the same problem, so he lost a lot of his preparation. So right now Muzzy maybe a little off form, but he's still in 5th place at the 6.2 kilometre marker.
Well, Johansson's lead still 18 seconds at 6.2, and he'll be approaching the finish fairly soon, so he's going to set a blistering time. It's not very often that someone starting in the first 2 or 3 comes in to record a win, unless we have dramatically changing conditions, which we don't have today. There's Dario Cologna coming up to 3.1, and he's close. In fact, he's more than close. He takes the lead, and Dario Cologna finds 4 in the first distance race of the season. 0.1 of a second. I wonder whether he's pacing himself off Johansson and whether he can keep that going. But we're about to see what the target time is. 21.19, 21.20, 0.1, and that is going to be tough to beat. Johansson has had the race of his life, and he certainly, as I said at the start, if he has a good run, he could earn himself a place for the rest of the season. I think he's done that already.
Oh, I think he's put that absolutely in stone, and good news for the rest of the Swedes. There's 2 of them coming up this steep section. It indicates their skis, the wax technicians have got the perfect wax and glide for today.
Remember, this big climb they're on at the moment goes from the lowest part of the course to within a metre of the highest part of the course, a 55-metre ascent. How many stories is that? That must be at least 12, 13-storey building.
Ah, it's severe. I was just thinking, sorry, I was miles away. I was thinking of Rickardson at 1.97 m. He makes it look so slow. You'd think, well, when's he going to start racing? But such a powerful athlete. Jönsson, after his 4 sprint outings yesterday over 1.4, it's looking good.
Only 12 seconds down at 3.1. Short technique from Jönsson, all slightly hunched. He's fairly muscle-bound, isn't he, for those sprint events. 47, Graham Killick from Canada.
It's a very steep bend, that, after just, what, 40, 50 metres. You can waste a little bit of energy if you go too fast into it. Nippy little step turn out of it.
All the big guns going off before number 60. Last of the big seeds will be Petter Northug, starts number 60. Here comes Alex Harvey up to 6.2. Remember, he was only a couple of seconds outside Johansson's time at 3.1. I'm not sure he's going to match it, Mike. He's not.
He's not, so it just shows the quality of Martin Jönsson Johansson, I should say, today. It's a brilliant start for the Swede.
So 10 seconds the margin for Harvey to make up in the last 3.8 kilometres. Definitely possible. Welcome back to Ruka. No one's been able to challenge Martin Johansson as yet. Sweden leading the way here. Here comes a big threat. Fosley, the winner from yesterday, but 24 hours to recover from a sprint race is not easy because it's a multiple sprint. You have the knockout round, then you have the qualifying round, then you have the first knockout, the semis, then the final. So 4 times round that 1500-meter course. It's a big ask to then produce a good distance race the following day.
But look at his time, I mean, and look at his movement on skis. You can see that there's the race, the sting is not in his stride today as it was yesterday, and quite honestly, when you're he's going to be 40, maybe 45 seconds down already, it's a very poor outing for Fosley at the moment.
And do you think that's why we saw Sundby seemingly take it easy in the first round of the sprint yesterday?
Something didn't look right. Well, here he is, and I think he'll do his talking now in this next 33, 34 minutes of racing.
Yeah, because one round of the track can be a good warm-up, 2 possibly still beneficial. Once you get to 3 and 4, you're going to be paying the following day.
Oh, without a doubt, you have to. The residual fatigue has to be in the muscles, although a lot of the athletes yesterday said they felt better and better as they progressed into the final.
Magnificat down at 17.5. It really is very, very tight, isn't it? Between 5 through to 20 at the moment. A couple of seconds, as coaches are often saying on the side of the track, every second counts. And it's the sort of words you need to be reminded of in the closing stages of a race, because even half a second can make 5 or 6 places difference, and that can mean valuable World Cup points. Here comes Legkov, the last winner of the last freestyle race here in Ruka, and he's not going to match the 21:20. Could be good enough for a top 5 or 6 today. He's going into second for now. Dario Colonia certainly a threat, the only man who's managed to match Johansson, but now finds himself 8.2 behind, having been half a second ahead at 3.1. So Dario Colonia is fading, but no real surprise because he's not shown his best form in the pre-season races.
Well, I am a little surprised though, because he is the master of pacing, isn't he? Dario Colonia, you would never see him get over panicked early on, and then he just opens up his full attack in the final quarter of the race, but he's dropping back.
Well, they're the top 10. No Norwegian domination like we saw yesterday, although some of their big guns still to start.
I was going to ask you earlier when the camera then moved to Muzzy on the start line, how many biathletes have come to the world of cross-country skiing and won the World Cup? Not a difficult question.
Well, I can think of one, and only one, but there are probably 2, because Lars Berger has won World Cup, and of course Uliana Bjorndalen. So 2 Norwegians have done it. I think there's a friendly rivalry between Fourcade and Bjorndalen, because Fourcade is chasing all Bjorndalen's records. He would love to win it, but I just can't see it happening. And I really think that an early start would have been beneficial for Fourcade.
I think it would have been to start so far back. And you've just been watching, or we can see the ski poles when they're planted down. There seems to be a little more splash in the snow, therefore getting warmer, or getting slightly more broken up.
Alex Harvey's technique getting a little bit ropey in the closing stages.
He's only 8 seconds
from him, but he's only 8 seconds off the pace. So Alex Harvey has moved up into second place, and if he can find a third gear, or certainly find a second wind in the closing stages, he might challenge. Glorason's had a wonderful finish. Where has that come from?
He's pulled 11 seconds back in the last 1.8 kilometres.
That is phenomenal, and it just shows what you can do on the final climb. So suddenly Norway are back in front with Glorason, and Johansson's dream of winning a World Cup has finished for today at any rate. He's in second place, Anders Glorason has worked his magic on that last kilometre and a half. The harder it is, the more time you can gain, and the finish here in Ruka is as hard as any on the World Cup circuit.
That was a brilliant, absolutely brilliant finish from Glorason. He is a man on form from the early season races, FIS Cup races.
11.6 behind at 6.2 kilometres. At 3.1, Mike, just trying to find a reason why he slipped under our radar.
Yeah, he took his early part of the race within himself at 3.1.
He's outside the top 20. There he is, 22nd, and he was 13 seconds down at 3.1. So that, well, certainly will give some of the other slower starters some cause to hope. As we watch Rickardson, Danny Rickardson, he's 23 seconds behind for Andy Musgrave at the moment, still lying in the top 5, and certainly, as Mike was saying, top 15 was what he was hoping for. That's still looking possible, but it's early days. Only 19 of 113 finishers across the line so far, so...
And the pace that Northug had released himself from the start, he has to be a major threat, even though he did do all 4 outings in the sprint yesterday.
Now, if Northug's first split at 3.1 is bad, are we going to see him do what he did in the 15K at the World Championships?
I think quite likely. Although tomorrow counts as well. Of course, it's a classic race tomorrow, over 15 kilometres, so he will press hard throughout this whole race. He needs the points.
And if you want to win the Ruka Triple, perhaps it's better not to win today. Just conserve something for the third and final day of racing.
Keep yourself in the running. Of course, tomorrow it starts as a hunting start. Today's winner will lead out. The rest of the world will be chasing the leader down.
Here comes Alex Harvey into the finish, and he's not had a bad run. He was in second place at 6.2, and he was 8 seconds off the pace of the leader.
Well, Gloorson was 11.6 at our 8.1 kilometre marker, so I think this is looking good for Alex Harvey.
Yeah, it's looking very good. 21.19 the time he's after. He's into the home straight. 75 metres to go. The lead is about to change. Anders Glorsson's hardly taking his place in the victor's seat, because here comes Alex Harvey. 2.7 the margin. Good finish from him. Very, very solid. He's made up 8.5. In fact, he's made 10-11 seconds up on Johansson in that last 2 kilometres as well.
Oh, absolutely outstanding finish, and he made it look controlled within himself. A great start for the Canadian.
Will that be good enough to win? Well, let's go back to 3.1. We know Dario Cologna was fading when we last saw him, but maybe he can raise his game in the closing stages. Won't be long before he comes in. 8.1 kilometres, Johansson, Cologna, Harvey, and Cologna again getting close, having been 8 seconds behind. He's closed it back down to 3.6, so Alex Harvey's celebrations may be short-lived. Sundby on the climb. He's the second of the 2 Norwegians, climbing the big hill up to the 3 kilometre marker. And Sundby looking good. He's going to be in touch with Dario Cologna. He's going to be inside, isn't he, Mike?
I think he is. It won't be a big margin, but safely inside. When you look at nearly 5 seconds at this point, that is actually a decent margin, and looking comfortable, looking controlled. Look at this climb in itself. You've just had the big descent from the stadium, and then it's been climbing since the stadium to this point.
Finnhagen Krok just trailing Theodor Pedersen, but he started a minute behind the Swede, so he's made good ground on Pedersen, and that will no doubt give Finnhagen a little bit of a boost. It is all about finding something positive to think about, isn't it, Mike? Because you can destroy your own race with your mind alone.
Oh, 100%. And of course, they've been pushed. All these athletes in this field today have been taking part in sports since the age of 8, 9, 10. They're well used to it.
So what's Sundby saying to himself? 4.6 second lead at 3.1?
He'll know that, yes, he will have been told that. He'll just be absolutely focusing within himself, making sure his breathing isn't over, that his legs are not being slightly overstressed. He'll just keep within himself, and I think we'll see a sting at the end from Sundby. Magnificat, very good in the freestyle technique. Always good, the French team, aren't they, when they come to the first World Cups, traditionally throughout the last, 10, 15 years. Always on form. They use the Glacier and Teen often. That's at 2,400 metres.
This is looking good for Dario Colonia. By my reckoning, he is now inside the time set by Martin Johansson, and he's inside the time set by Gloresen. The Norwegian had a good finish, but we didn't see a definite sprint from him coming down the finishing line. 21.2 outside for Magnificat, so it's around 30 seconds from the top of the climb, and Colonia still has 22 in hand. What did Gloresen have? 17 from the turn. Well, Colonia's slightly outside that time now. So, will it be Switzerland? Will it be Norway? 6.5 seconds to play with. It will be close. 21.16 from Harvey is there at the moment, and he's just outside. He splits Harvey and Gloresen, and Alex Harvey remains the number one. But he can't celebrate yet because Sundby is still out on the tracks. He may not have seen that. He's got a little computer to his right-hand side, and Alex Harvey will be able to track Sundby all the way around the course. He knows now that that must be the danger man.
Well, Alex Harvey had packed up all his kit there. He was ready to vacate that seat, but back in it.
What do you make of Colonia's pacing there? Because he was up with Johansson at 3, he was 8-9 seconds down on Johansson at 6, and he was ahead of him again at the finish.
It's unusual. I thought he might have stumbled or tripped or fallen when he was 8.8 seconds behind it. Northug not on fire, but if there's anybody can turn this around, it's Northug.
Exactly the same time as Andrew Musgrave going through that 3.1. But it's a brutal course, isn't it, Mike? These steep climbs, they make you pay the price if you've gone too hard. You've got to have something left for the final climb, as we've seen. And there's this monster hill on the second lap that is taking a lot of time out of those who've pushed too hard early on.
I'll have to say, I was a little surprised that Colonia didn't get that victory on the line, but it was only by 0.4 of a second, and it just shows how strong Alex Harvey was up the final climb. He really dug deep in the final climb.
Harvey looked very good, very good indeed, but no one's really produced a Northug-esque sprint down the finish line. Very early season to be able to do that.
It is, isn't it? And once you've climbed up that final horrendous hill, it's so difficult to find any speed change. You're just on survival to the line.
Alex Harvey, number 23, son, of course, of Pierre Harvey, who is a former World Cup winner. Actually, Pierre winning the Holmenkollen 50 back in 1988, just after he failed to medal at the Olympic Games in Calgary. But I dare say Pierre watches every single World Cup race Alex is involved in. He'll be willing him on today. Nothing more he can do now. That time of 21.16 has been posted. It is all about Sundby of Norway, who's still out on the track. I don't think Northug is going to be a threat. Andy Musgrave still on the first sheet of the results at the moment in 10th place, and still hoping for that top 15 today. That would be some very handy World Cup points. Finnhagen Krok goes through in 6th, 15.8 outside. Gloresen made up 11 seconds, Harvey made up 10. Here comes Sundby up to 6.2. Now the current standings at 6.2. Johansson on 17.45. In fact, Johansson on 12.54. Colonia just 8 seconds behind. Alex Harvey was in 3rd at 6.2, Bachschneider in 4, and Maurice Magnificat in 5. Is that all about to change? I think it is. Another 25 metres or so to go for Sundby. 12 seconds in hand at the moment. It's going to be close. It's going to be close, and he's going to have to raise his game over the closing stages if he wants to win this one, because we know Harvey and we know that Colonia was quick in the closing. 1.7 to play with, and that might puts him 9 seconds ahead of Dario Colonia, and it puts him 11 seconds clear of Alex Harvey.
Well, it's still not in the bag for him at all when you're looking at these small margins, and I think slightly worrying for Sundby. He's lost 3 seconds to Johansson over the last 2 kilometres.
Devon Kershaw started 30 seconds ahead of Sundby, and he stuck with him now for a couple of kilometres. So he's doing well, and he could be dragged up to a top 5 result if he can stay with Sundby. There you see the standings. The next one, 8.2 is it? 8.1, 8.2 kilometres. We'll get another indication there whether Sundby's going to be able to hold on and take victory. Sundby, of course, the World Cup champion from last year. His last victory at World Cup was on the 11th of January this year, when he won the overall World Cup at the Tour de Ski. And of course that played a massive part in bringing him to the overall World Cup win. Harvey still looks relaxed. He cannot be that relaxed inside, because it's certainly not beyond the bounds of possibility that he is going to win here today.
Well, this is interesting. I mean, Sundby is the last of the big names. Of course, Northug started behind Sundby, but a little off the pace early on. He could come back, but then we have to go all the way down to 94, starter 94, which is Martin Fourcade, who could be the only one, I think, to threaten the top of the podium, if he's on form.
Haven't seen too much of the Germans today. This is Jonas Dobler. Germany not quite as dominant as they were in the 90s. The days of Teichmann and Angerer have gone. Jochen Baylor still in charge?
No, Jochen has stepped back and out of it. In fact, he's more into his commentating now than his coaching. But no, sadly, the German team was very strong there in late 90s, early 2000s, but dropped way back. Krog has done so well to fluctuate in this race. Started slow and brought it up to a magnificent finish.
Yeah, fifth place position at the moment for Krog, and last year's #1 sprinter, showing that he can go the distance as well. 10 kilometres, the shortest distance race that the men are involved in throughout the season. Here comes Petter Northug, way off the mark at 3.1, and I think he's going to be more than twice as far off the mark come 6.2, because he's still got a lot of climbing to do before the clock will stop. Colonia at 9.9.
I think out of all in the history of modern cross-country skiing, I think he is the man, though, who can find something. Yeah, even when visually he looks like he's an absolutely spent force. He's not going to come back from that surely today, but in so many big races we see this man find something. It's his mindset saying, okay, this really matters, and then he finds an extra surge of energy. But unlikely today to come back at this stage.
He's a man for the big occasion. When he wants to win, he normally can. Here we go, number 44, Alexei Petchikov, another man who's better known for his sprinting prowess, and he's gone down into 18th. That's not bad at all. Could well find himself with some World Cup points today. Top 30 getting World Cup points, as is normally the case. Here's the man that we're interested in. Through 8 kilometres. He's got 2,000 metres to go. He had, what did he have? 3 seconds to play with, or 1.7 seconds to play? 1.7 seconds to play with at 6.1 kilometres. Has he managed to extend it?
I think he has, and I think he's holding something in reserve. He's always put himself in the position around that sharp end. I'm convinced he can find a little something if needed.
I like the fact there's never a static moment with the legs. The moment the ski makes contact, he starts extending the knee, driving all the time. From 1.7, he switched it round, 7.9 now, and a massive margin clear of Dario Colonia. He's 16 seconds clear of Alex Harvey, who finished twice on the podium last year in second place. It could happen again. Three races completed here in Ruka. 3 victories going to the Norwegians. Looks as though it could well be 4 out of 4. What an opening weekend for them. 7.9 the margin between Johansson and Sundby. Johansson, unfortunately for him, Mike, he's off the podium with Harvey, Colonia, Glorison the top three at the moment.
Well, I think we said it was going to be tight, Patrick, but can you believe in the first 5 places, the first 4 places, in fact, separated by only 3.4 seconds. What a pity for Martin Johansson in 4th place.
But what a race. He has made his mark. He's the best of the Swedes, surely securing his place for the next couple of rounds of the World Cup, certainly up until the Christmas break. But it might be one of those classic cases. His whole season, his whole summer has been geared towards doing well here.
Or making, establishing himself once again. He's never always been a regular brought into the team. Now he wants to establish himself in the Swedish team suit all season long. Today will certainly anchor that.
Adrian Bachschneider of France with a positive finish, just squeezes in ahead of Andy Musgrave, who's now down into 12th position, and maybe we're looking at a top 20 rather than the top 15 for Andy Musgrave, but that's still excellent skiing.
I think it's been a brilliant day for Andy Musgrave, not on his best form at the moment, but to be 26 seconds behind over 10 kilometres behind this man is a wonderful performance.
The man from Saint-Fériol in Quebec. Now, is this man going to keep the race alive? What can Martin Fourcade do? Surely not having his rifle on his back is going to make life a little bit easier.
Oh, when you've got 4 kilograms, just under 4 kilos, so high up on your shoulders, the barrel doesn't really allow the same tempo because you have to keep more smooth in biathlon. You can't quite go for the same tempo. Be a little different, but he'll be feeling lighter for sure.
One more climb for Martin Jonrud Sundby, the World Cup champion from last year. He's on his way. He V2s up the first section without any trouble whatsoever. Now he ups the tempo. This last little climb is going to hurt everyone, and Sundby will make sure it hurts him. 50 seconds to play with. He looks to me to be at least 10 seconds inside the next best time. 21:16. We have seen a few falls, so Harvey may be hoping for a little bit of misfortune for Sundby, but he must know that his time will be beaten. The final corner to negotiate for Sundby.
So smooth, so easy. He's worked even more on his technique, and he's looking much more efficient so far this season. It's looking brilliant.
He looks sharper today than he did in the sprint yesterday, and this is going to be a very, very impressive time. He won't beat 21 minutes, but he's going ahead of Alex Harvey by a comfortable margin, 11.2. Remember, at 6.1, he was only 1.7 ahead of Johansson. So he's saved himself, and as you say, Mike, he's brilliant at pacing himself.
Yeah, that was just a wonderful performance all round. He always wanted to keep in contact, but you always sensed there was something left if needed. Up to this finish line. It doesn't look like it now, but I'm sure he could have dug a bit deeper if he had to.
Alex Harvey dashing over to congratulate. I thought for a moment it was Andrew Newell, but that can't have been the case. I think it was Devon Kershaw. It must have been Devon Kershaw he was going over to congratulate, who just finished behind Sundby, having started 30 seconds ahead of him. So a good run, actually, from Kershaw. We'll try and update you on his position. Sixteenth place for Pearl of Switzerland. It's so tight for those minor placings. Big margin between first and second now of over 10 seconds. Sundby hasn't been quite as impressive as Therese Johaug was earlier on today, but there he is on top of the leaderboard. Alex Harvey, second place. Remember, he got 2 runners-up spots last year in the World Cup. He's overdue another win to take his World Cup tally up to 5. That's including the stage World Cups, as they're known. Dario Colonia, Mike, third place. He's not on his best form. We'll see better from him, no doubt, this year.
Well, I think we definitely will. he's just so technically good as Dario Colonia. Even his bad days aren't bad, but he certainly says he's not on best form. He's done a huge load of training, so now that he'll back off with his quality hours, he will lift his form, you would expect, for Lillehammer.
And I would imagine that his focus really is on the next couple of years, the World Championships next year in Lahti, and then of course we're thinking about Olympics again after that. Is this season one for experimentation? Is it one for just working out different ways of improving?
It's a strange season this year. The majors always focus a team, and the budgets tend to go up looking at a World Championships. I think it is just maintaining and building, maybe even experimenting with quality sessions.
Well, Northug putting on a show. He's 30 seconds behind the race leaders, but this is what the crowd want to see. No one can climb quite like this man, and we've seen it at so many majors. We saw it in Falun. I think perhaps most memorably, we saw it in Oslo in the World Championships there in 2011. Astonishing finishing power.
He's lifted the pace. I'll try and get a view on if he is the fastest over the last time split, which was at 8.1 kilometres. Certainly the fastest up that final climb, but not very efficient around that bend.
Beautifully balanced in that familiar double poling style of his. Beautifully flat ski as well. Northug going into 16th place, 39.5 ahead, just a couple of seconds ahead of Andrew Musgrave. Well, welcome back to Ruka. And just if you keep your eye on the bottom right-hand side of the screen, you'll see the names who are at the top of the leaderboard at the moment. I guess all eyes on the track, waiting for Martin Fourcade to come through, 3.1. But early indications, Mike, are not good in terms of challenging for a win. Here he comes.
Certainly at the first split check at 1.2, it was only 7 seconds behind, 28th position. But this isn't looking good for the next split time. Oh, sorry, he's in minus. It's looking very good, in fact. And he is the master of control, as Fourcade. A little bit like Northug in that sense. He can save something, he can play around with pacing. But it's a big challenge for him today, I think, to make the top 10.
Yeah, if he can stay within 10 seconds here, he's still got a chance, because if you look down the list, there are plenty of big names, those who finished well up the order, who were 7, 8, 9 seconds behind. Fourcade, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I'd hate to put a downer on his efforts, but I cannot see him coming back from 15 seconds with another 7 Ks to go.
Okay, I'll have to beg to differ just because it's Fourcade. No, but the tracks aren't broken up. You saw him going wide. He's very much like Northug. He reads the track well. I think he is disadvantaged, to be honest, with the break-up off the track.
I couldn't agree more, and I think we said earlier on the advantage was to those who started a little bit earlier today. Didn't seem to bother Sundby. You've got to remember, he's only just finished, so he pretty much had the worst of the conditions as well. Technically, you said earlier that he was a great classic skier initially, then he worked a whole summer on his skating. He's now perhaps the best technician of all.
It's incredible, and he's improved again technically in the freestyle from last season, and he is a perfectionist. And he looks at that's easy money, isn't it, to go in a gym and just work on the muscle groups which support your balance, which help you glide and recover your leg. If you're gliding, you're resting.
He is a man who lives and breathes and sleeps cross-country skiing. You won't find him out in too many bars.
You won't. Pépin, he's a huge talent, a world champion in roller skiing this summer in Val di Fiemme. It's got to be a comfortable feeling for Sundby with the World Cup next weekend, going over to Lillehammer, where he knows so well, knows the track so well. Just looking for the first Finnish athlete across the line. Thought we might see a top 20. But we go all the way down to 28th. Antti Penssinen, 54 seconds behind in 28th place. But I think Andrew Musgrave got to shout and scream how good that result is with his setback this summer with glandular fever, and not on form, producing a 13th position, 37 seconds behind. Hopefully that's a sign of great things, more great things to come this season. Frank and Hillary will be watching up in Huntly and have to be so proud of the way that Andrew can match these best in the world athletes.
And I think what really the encouragement I'm taking from his result is that he started third. He was 8.5 seconds behind at the first split point, or at 3.1 Ks. Now, normally that's a red rag to a bull. He would have gone hell for leather to try and make that up. He held his nerve. He's learnt to pace his race that little bit better. And it's not just about training, it's about learning how to race as well. And that part of his game seems to be coming together.
Yeah, 100% learning. And he's done a lot of racing. But it's hard when you've got that natural...
familiar position here, leading the tour now after 2 days, 1 day left. This is where you wanted to be?
Yeah, for sure. I reckon I had some seconds to catch tomorrow. Now I go up first. It's not like you have to prepare mentally for doing that. Never done that before, except for the tour. So that will be a different story. But hopefully I will have a good game tomorrow as well, and have a nice tour end here.
And we were just talking real quickly. It's a challenging course here.
Yeah, like they don't seem so tough because it's a lot of flat parts, and the uphills it's quite short, but still the downhills is difficult. You need to adjust all the time just to keep on your feet, and you get no rest for like 2 seconds in these tracks for 10 Ks today. So the time is fast, but still the tracks are so tough.
Well, you managed all those points very well, so congrats on the win and taking over the lead.
Thank you so much.
He didn't mention how steep the climbs were.
He said the hills are not so big, they're huge.
Well, but I guess by his standards. But also, in a way, talking down his experience of the Tour de Ski, where he last year he led off on numerous occasions, being chased by the likes of Petter Northug. So you can't say that's not valuable. He knows what it's like to go off first, and he'll probably already have decided how he's going to play this one. 11-second advantage. Does he just take it easy for the first 3K, let the pack catch up, or does he go and try and maintain that, extend that?
As he said, you know, he's going to have to sit down tonight, or he's probably thinking about it now as well. What do I do? Do I try and keep that psychological gap? Because if the pack catch him, it reduces his chances, doesn't it? Or then it becomes a tactical race rather than his good form that he has. Does he try to snap everybody else?
Well, if we have a look at the finishing times here, Mike, we will be able to see just how many people are going to be within 20 seconds of him at the start of the race.
Well, you're absolutely right. There's going to be a good number. 6 athletes within 20 seconds, then 10 athletes within 30 seconds. So it's close. Just to say, Patrick, Fourcade is moving up the ranking. He's 9th now at 5K. In fact, we should see him coming up soon. Up to this point. So it's not over yet. Here he is.
Now, the time margin is important. If he can get within 10 seconds of the leaders, that will put him into the top 3 or 4. That's not going to happen, I don't think. He's still got a little way to go, but if he can keep it under 20 seconds, he's still got a chance of getting into the top 5 at the end of the day. Actually, a top 10 is still a very, very good result, because I think there's better to come from Martin Fourcade. 24 seconds down, and he's he's 0.2 ahead of Andy Musgrave. That's a scalp that Musgrave would love to take. Martin Fourcade, 2 days in succession. Well, that's 6.2 for you. And Sundby, Johansson, Colonia, Harvey, Bachschneider is there in 5th. He's had a very good run indeed. Maurice Magnificat putting the French up in the top of the order. Further down, Danny Rickardson, not a bad run from him. Martin Fourcade has dropped a place. Andy Musgrave lying 15th at that stage of the race, and at the moment he's lying 13th at the finish.
It's impressive, it is, and you just feel the conditions breaking up here now for Fourcade. Is he going to move further forward? I'm not sure he will. He's reading the track well. He was going completely to the edge of the track where it's more compressed.
And I wonder what effect this is going to have on his biathlon. He'll be heading over to Östersund for next weekend's racing. Won't get involved in the mixed relays.
Wednesday, actually. He'll be doing the individual on Wednesday.
Yeah.
20 kilometre, and this will be good preparation. You know, it's not a bad thing to leave the rifle in a cupboard for a while, or in a safe, I should say, and just get away and do something else. He'll go back refreshed to biathlon.
Interesting that the cross-country World Cup starts with a sprint event, and the biathlon starts with the longest race of all, the 20.
It does. I think they build that in that first week, because then there's a couple of easy days before the sprint in biathlon, which is 10 kilometres. Mixed relay, of course, tomorrow.
Gianluca Cologna.
Interesting, Gianluca, born in the same place, in the same village, skied on the same tracks, the same family, the same genes, but hasn't quite been able to get to where his brother is. Although Gianluca is a good sprinter, and, you know, I would expect this season that we see him finishing certainly top 10, maybe even on the podium in some of the sprint competitions.
It's so often the case that one of the brothers is dominant. I'm trying to think of a family where the dominant brother has switched over time. Simon Fourcade was obviously ahead of Martin early on because he was older, but I think since Martin's been at his full strength, he's always been dominant there.
The Bjørndalen brothers, Dag Bjørndalen, could shoot beautifully, but could never match the ski speed of his brother, Ole Einar Bjørndalen.
The Skjelbred sisters, Liv Greta was always one step ahead.
Absolutely. I'm thinking in terms of any brothers or sisters, or even the twins, but then you look at the Ukrainian twins in biathlon, who are very, very close on each given day in performances.
Now look at the snow there. You can see that there are good 2 or 3 inches of soft snow on the surface, and I think that really will seal Martin Fourcade's fate, because you cannot climb as quickly, and although you can still get reasonable ski speed, Mike, you just lose that little bit of energy as you compress the ski.
And that's why the technical committee, or that's why the committee have looked at the different starting orders this season, saying, well, it's not always an advantage. Often it's a disadvantage going last, but as long as you've got the seeded group all going last, then it's the same. And I am a little surprised they've moved that seeded group into position 30 to 60 this year, with lower ranked athletes interspersed between them. I don't know whether it's a good thing yet or a bad thing, but it's certainly more equal and fair for them. But someone like Fourcade today is disadvantaged going last.
Martin Fourcade was 17 seconds down. At 3.1 at the moment, 14th place. I think 24.5 was his last split.
That's right, at 6K. So here he is now, coming up to the 8.1. Still good, still very good. He's going wide again to the right side of the track, trying to find better snow, compressed snow.
Well, a little injection of speed from Martin Fourcade, but it's not going to keep the deficit under 30 seconds, and that keeps him in 19th place, still only fractions of a second ahead of Andrew Musgrave, who's had a brilliant run. Musgrave still lying in 13th, so I think top 15 almost certain at this stage, Mike. I can't see anyone else out there from the late starter who's matching Martin Fourcade.
Definitely not, and Fourcade has worked a lot in the summer on his strength and on his pace for the finish part, the closing stage of the race. So I wonder if Fourcade can pull back 3-4 seconds from this point. I think he can. And it also poses a question, if Muzzy picked up a rifle, he's skiing at the same pace as the best biathlete over the last 4 years. Well, just think of that. If he could shoot, he could be beating Fourcade.
Yeah, I think there might be a transfer fee involved if you get him to switch to biathlon, but it would be great to see. Plenty of Swedes have gone from cross-country to biathlon, and in fact that's really how Sweden have had their success, particularly in the women's tour. Develop a cross-country skier, then teach them to shoot. You've got to have those early years of ski training to be able to compete at a high level.
I think you have. Once you've got the ski pace there, it's to learn how to shoot. It's just a routine. It's not a difficult thing to do at all, but it has to be it has to be desire to be the best shot, or to master the shooting when you're out of breath like this. It's a huge task.
Simi Hamilton still looking relatively fresh. He won't be feeling it, but it's always a good sign when the technique holds out all the way throughout a race, even when you're feeling your worst. 127, 128, he's going to be roughly 130 behind, 48th position out of the World Cup points, and a long way adrift at the start of tomorrow's race. Certainly the American women producing the best of the North American teams, I think, so far this weekend.
Yeah, they did very, very well in the 5 kilometre with, 2 placed in the top 10.
Andrew Newell, of course, don't forget him in the sprint yesterday. 4th place from Andrew, who was good. Now, into the finish for Martin Fourcade. And once he has finished, I think the overall positions, certainly those in the top 20, can relax. 20 seconds to go. And he's, I think, Mike, 4 or 5 seconds down on Petter Northug's time, and Northug lying in 16th at the moment, but we'll see. 21.05, he won't match that. The winner's time has gone. Now it's a question of positions. Now I'd love to finish 1 or 2 in the French lineup. Best of the French so far, Maurice Magnificat lying in 9th place with a time 32.4 outside the leaders. 20 seconds behind at the moment. And Martin Fourcade round the final corner, 15 seconds or so from here. So the margin will be around 40 seconds.
Oh, he's lost a little time over this last stage, Patrick. He was, just 35 seconds behind at the last check. So
yeah, he was ahead of Andrew Musgrave. He's going to finish behind him, and he misses out on a top 20, 22nd position for Martin Fourcade. Cross country is not quite as easy as it may seem. Food for thought, but impressive nonetheless. I think we'll see better from him.
Very impressed. He's not on form. He's come in not at his best, but interesting.
Martin Jonsrud Sundby has started this season how he finished the Tour de Ski in top place. Yet again, his 7th victory for a man who's achieved so much. You would expect him to have more. 2 Crystal Globes to his name, 2014, 2015. Is he going to make it 3 World Cup victories in succession in 2016? We'll see before too long. He's certainly on tremendous form at the moment. And a well-paced, well-judged race today from Sundby. And that, of course, makes it 4 wins out of 4 for Norway. Well, there's plenty of Nordic action this weekend. The Alpine skiers are in action as well, the women in Aspen, and the men competing in the downhill in Lake Louise, one of the highlights of the season. So let's have a look at the programme. The ski jumping at 1:20 UK time. If the wind doesn't prevent that from taking place, the Nordic Combined, of course, cancelled. And then it's all about the Alpine. Aspen, as I said, for the ladies slalom, the first leg at 16:45. And then we go for a bit of speed at 18:15. The men's downhill in Lake Louise. That should be a cracking race. Hope you can tune in for that. And then, of course, the second leg of the women's slalom later on this evening, 8 o'clock UK time. That's all for now from us, Mike Dixon and myself, Patrick Winterton. Thanks for your company. 4 great races. We've got 2 more to go and slightly longer distances for the men and women tomorrow. Back in the classic style. Will it be all about Norway once again? Johaug and Sundby, today's winners. They could win the Ruka Triple with another good race tomorrow. That's all for now. See you soon. Goodbye.